here today with Scheels. George is here with me, again, an expert and also a trainer and certified by the NRA. Correct, George?
That's correct.
So we are here today at Scheels, and we are going to be joined by Fran, who's going to help me, along with George, process the information about the guns and what I'm exactly looking for. Fran? Hi, I'm Laura.
Good morning, Laura.
How are
Fran,
you?
nice to meet you.
Hi, Fran. George Butts.
George, nice to meet you, Fran Carolini.
I guess my first question is, I'm deciding between I conceal and carry and home protection. So what would be the first step with that question in mind, George?
Well, I think the first step would be to approach it with the idea that you want to just take those baby steps and start to educate yourself and learn about firearms. And a lot of times the first step would be home protection or just target shooting rather than instantly buying a gun and conceal carrying it. And I think that's what Fran's going to do with us today is maybe take us through those steps of, you know, your first initial home protection gun. And if Fran, if you want to take over and...
Sure. Typically what we would do is we would ask a series of questions to try to determine what it is you're exactly looking for. A question might be, have you ever used a firearm before? George touched on one of the topics. Are you going to use it for home defense? Are you going to use it for concealed carry? Because those might be two distinctly types of firearms. The next thing, once we determine that, is we'll try to determine what type of a style or fit is best for you, what are you most comfortable with, because you always shoot a firearm better if you're comfortable handling it. So we would try to ask a series of questions to try to determine that information. Today we would like to look for
The home invasion.
home invasion.
And I just want to point out, as you look around Scheels, you're going to see an array of guns. Don't let this stop you. Right now, it's an overwhelming feeling for myself, even with these two experts, and you might not have an expert with you. So again, great questions already asked, and we already determined we're going to go today into home invasion, something that will protect me, my daughters, and my family in case that encounter would come. Of course, the first step you should always do also is contact someone about education and classes, and we're going to touch on that in another video. But right now, Fran's going to take us to a series of guns that we will start the process of what now fits me.
The array of firearms that can be used for home protection is probably much bigger, much more broad than it would be for personal concealed carry. It could range anything from a somewhat diminutive sized firearm to something as big as a revolver or a 45 ACP, a 44 Magnum revolver or 45 ACP. Typically, we still want to find something that's going to fit your hand, that you're going to be comfortable handling. Yet at the same time, it won't be too big and obtrusive. But also part of the equation is that it's not so small. You're not worried about hiding it on your person. You're worried about having good control of that firearm. So we'll go through a number of firearms that probably fit that bill.
Wonderful.
Okay. The three big names right now, although this doesn't make them the best, it doesn't necessarily make them the only ones, but the three big names in the industry in polymer style semi-automatic handguns are going to be Glock, which is really heavily used in the law enforcement area, Springfield, which has become a real big up-and-comer in the last 5-6 years, as well as the Smith & Wesson M&P. Those are the three polymer frame handguns that seem to be most comfortable. I don't think that we want to discount, though, the use of a revolver just because of its ease of operation.
And how do you feel about those gun choices, George?
Well, Fran's absolutely right. I mean, there are, in general, manufacturers that are more popular, but like Fran said, you know, we don't want to dismiss any of the other manufacturers or what they have to offer also. Because if we come into a store with the idea that the big name guys, whether it's Ruger, Springfield, Smith & Wesson, you know, that's our option, then maybe we're not allowing for us to get a broader view and broader spectrum of something that fits you right or fits you correctly. Am I right about that?
That is correct. And as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, those are the three big names that we have right now in the industry. There's a lot of other really good names, big names, but may have certain criteria about the firearm that is not as popular, i.e. price. We could look at 6 Hours or Heckler & Koch's. Incredibly nice handguns, but they're going to start running more in the $900 price range. So one of the questions, again, back to the series of questions would be, what kind of a price range do you think you want to stay in? The Beretta 92, used by our military since 1985. anything 1911 45 ACP used by our military, adopted by the military in 1911, actually used by the military since 1912 until 1985, and many special forces using the same firearm. So there's just a couple of examples. Kimber would be a name that comes to mind. So that's just a couple of examples of firearms that are out there in addition to the big three. So with that, we have a number we can be looking at.
I think one of the things is I have reached out to a few friends and asked, and I think that a price range is staying underneath $1,000, if at all possible. It just makes people comfortable that this is something they're going to purchase, but they have to take some time and get familiar with, along with other costs, such as bullets and holsters and things like that. So can we look at several of that?
One part of the equation I think that we also need to make sure that we're touching on, we touched a little bit on revolvers a little bit earlier, is ease of operation. Because a firearm is rendered useless if you can't pick it up and immediately use it and be comfortable with it. So we'll touch on that a bit as well.
Well, I think that's a great point. You know, one of the biggest things that I think can be an intimidator for women is not understanding bullet size and calibers and things like that. And, you know, and once you go from, say, a 22 up to a 45, then you're even talking about a price difference there too. Whereas a 22 could be perfect for one woman, or a 40 or a 9mm could be perfect for another woman. So I think in that whole process, if you come into a facility or a store and you're unclear on the different calibers of handguns, it's a real important question to get more information on. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. At this point, I think George is correct, and at this point, I think what we want to do is we want to lay those firearms out and take a look at what some of the options are. We're going to do something that's not traditional for Scheels at this point. Is we'll actually lay out, for this purposes, we'll lay out a number of firearms. Typically, because of the safety aspect of it, we'll only have one firearm out at a time. For this purpose, we'll take out a number of them so we can compare and contrast for the people viewing.
All right, wonderful. As we get the guns assembled, we'll come right back and we'll go over the guns and what choices